So if you're looking to add a little bit more currency to your mapping without having to do too much additional work, or you're looking to be able to enchant some of your own gear without having to find some random friend or somebody to pay, then this is the video for you. Hey guys, Big Ducks here, and welcome back to the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Syndicate is extremely overwhelming to a ton of people, and you've probably seen lots of videos from content creators that are multiple hours long with 1,000 steps, and it just seems like it's just too much for me. Well, this video isn't going to be that. This video is going to give you the tools that you need to be able to make those decisions for yourself. Decide which pieces of the board you want to set up, decide if you even want to do the board or not, if you want to just kill the Mastermind and go for her loot, or anything else that you'd like to do. So remember guys, if you enjoy my content and you want more people to see it, make sure to like this video. Also, over 80% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. So if you want to stay up to date with all the latest content and you want more videos like this in your feed, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now, without further ado, let's get into the guide. All right, boys, so remember, there is a lot to go over in this video, so there's going to be timestamps in the description below this video, so you can jump to each specific section of the video. Whatever you've got a question about, the answer is probably there, so find which part that you'd like to watch. Now, before we get into the specifics of like the strategies for setting up your board, or for killing the Mastermind, or doing anything else, like making currency, unlocking crafts, I want to talk about the very basics of the Syndicate. Now, Syndicate is through the Master June here. You get access to this later in the campaign, and then it really starts to pick up once you get into maps. Now, the main mechanic of the Syndicate is this board right here. There's a bunch of different people. You might remember these if you've played Path of Exile for quite some time. These were the old masters before the ones that we have now. However, they are the enemy now as they've been recruited by our Mastermind here up at the top. Now, the basic purpose of this board is to move these different characters around to the different sections of the board so that you can influence the drops that they have, as well as to unlock the final fight with the Mastermind here up at the top. Now, before we get into any of the specifics, I just want to run a actual master mission with Syndicate on it so that you guys can get a very basic idea of how this works. We're going to be running the June Syndicate mission here. This is just a random tier 16 map that I rolled. And when you get into the map very early on, you're going to notice that there's going to be these little green markers that'll show up eventually. And these people are actually going to be the Syndicate themselves. Now there's a bunch of different options that you've got. There's things like the Syndicate laboratory that you can go into, where there is just a basically set of objectives. Here we need to kill the Syndicate members before we actually run out of time here. So once we get to this final room, we'll actually have access to the Syndicate members themselves, and once we kill them, we'll get a couple of options. So let's finish off these Syndicate members here. Now there can be anywhere from like 1 to 4 most of the time. I think 4 is the most that you can realistically get. Once you actually kill these Syndicate members here, you're going to notice that they get these little cards up that you can click. Now if you click the first card, you will notice that there are 2 options here. Each time that you talk to one of these people, you'll notice that they have 2 options, and depending on what you say to them, different things happen. So we're going to start with it that fled. Now, initially, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at what your 2 options are. The left one is almost always going to be interrogating them. Now, what interrogating does is this contributes research towards the safe houses that you'll see up here. Now, typically, it's not worth doing any kind of interrogating until you get them to at least level 2 or level 3, so we're going to hold off from that for now. The other option here is that we can rank up It That Fled, and also It That Fled can move to research. Now, it just so happens that It That Fled, you do want her in research particularly. That is where her good drop comes from. Beyond those 2 options, a lot of people don't actually know this, but there is a third option down here as well, which is just release the target. So say, for example, you do want to get It That Fled into research. However, she pops up again later and you are forced to move her somewhere or interrogate her, but you really don't want to do that, because then you're going to either lose ranks on her or you're going to move her to somewhere where you don't want her at. You can simply release the target, nothing will happen, and the board will just stay exactly how it was. However, we are going to execute her, which will rank her up and move her into research, where we want her. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that typically after you choose one of these, the options of the other guys will change sometimes. So what we're going to do here is we are going to move Ricci into research just so we can get him into research and pump some more people into this section. And then you'll notice that Camaria's options have completely changed now. So we've got Camaria moves to transportation, Jorgen moves to research. And now you can kind of see the basics of how it goes. You can either choose to do nothing, you can interrogate them to get a little bit more of the intelligence leading up to the Safehouse fights, or you can choose whatever the right side option is, which is going to like either execute them and level them up, move people around, among other things. So those are the very basics when it comes to actually moving people around on the board. Now the next thing is that you're going to notice these items that drop with these little like swirly letters on them, right? These are veiled items. These are the way that you unlock crafts for your crafting bench. You'll see that it actually has this mod here that's called Of the Veil, and you'll notice here that it has a specific mod that says It That Fleds Veiled. Now these two are very different and very important, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now if you go up to here and you talk to June, you'll be able to give her this item, you'll be able to unveil it, and you'll get a couple options. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, and it may not be obvious at first glance. However, the way that this works is that when you unveil these and get them all the way to max, this is actually how you unlock the crafts on your bench itself. So here we didn't get anything too great. I've already unlocked all of these, so you're not going to be able to see it, but we will choose that. It'll put the craft on the item, and then we can simply drop it on the ground. You can keep it in your inventory if you want to save it, but I think that it's a little bit easier to just do this in the map and just toss the bad stuff on the ground. Now you'll notice that this one says prefix modifier It That Fleds Veiled. Now this is important because ones that say the specific member and then veiled typically have a specific outcome that they can give you. Now you'll notice here that we have access to gain percentage of lightning damage is extra chaos, cold damage over time multiplier, and minions have extra life and damage. Now I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure it is the gain 4% of lightning damage is extra chaos damage is the It That Fled mod. Now there are specific mods that can only be revealed off of certain people's veiled. Like for example, if you want +2 to support gems, you need Catarina's Veiled. If you want the minus cost of skills on rings, you're going to need Elrion's Veiled, so on and so forth. You can find a list of those on the PoE wiki page. So when we choose this here, you'll notice that we confirm it, and it unlocks this craft for us. You'll see new crafting unlocked, damage is extra chaos damage, rank 1. This is going to unlock that for us to be able to craft on our bench. So we don't need this anymore, although that is a decently high physical roll, it's bloodthirsty, but anyways. And then you'll notice this one down here is Varici. So Varici should have something specific as well. So you'll see we've got +1 to level of socketed AoE gems, we've got regenerate mana. I think that it's AoE gems that's Varici's, I'm not 100% certain. However, we already have this unlocked, so we're gonna go for additional physical damage. This also might be Varici's as well. That is the way that you unlock all of those unveils. Now, if you're trying to unlock very specific unveils, such as the Elrion one or Catarina's one, you're going to need to do specific things, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later when we're actually talking about unveiling. So after a certain point, you're going to get this quest essentially from June where you're going to see that there is a safe house available. Now what the safe house is this is the way that you actually accomplish your goal of getting to the Mastermind if that's what you'd like to do. So the safe house itself is going to have all of the members of that section, and they're going to drop their specific items that you'll see coming up later on. What you're going to do is you're going to enter the safe house. June's going to create these portals here, and then the safe house is actually just going to be the average eye level of all of the zones that you've been completing recently. Mine's 83 because I've been doing tier 16s, and it is also going to be a pretty good map for getting experience. You can see there's 100% increased experience gained here. This is just a straightforward map, packed with yellow mobs, there's no modifiers, it's just a ton of enemies and a ton of experience. Even at very high levels, you can still get pretty good experience here. This is similar to doing like high tier pure breach stones and things like that. So this is a very good way to get experience, a very good way to get the actual items that you're looking for out of Syndicate. This is the way that you get those things like upgrading the pure Cholula breach stones or getting like time worn uniques and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So you definitely do want to do these regardless of if you're killing the Mastermind or just setting up your board, because this is how you get a lot of the best items from it. Now you'll notice when we get up here to the safe house that this is actually the leader of the safe house. Currently it's Guff. He's not very useful, but you're going to have to fight him, and then you're gonna have to fight all of the different members of the safe house at the same time. We'll see all these people that were there on the board that I pointed out before. We have to kill all of them simultaneously. And then once that is done, you're going to get this special option with the leader. Now you'll see here that it says Guff is in prison and you get 16 Mastermind intelligence per turn. The idea here is this is how you push towards getting the Mastermind unlocked. So we'll interrogate him, he'll move down here, and over the next couple turns, which is whenever you choose one of those options, we will gain some Mastermind experience. Now, as for the Mastermind, if you want more information on that fight, you can go down to the description and find the timestamp for the Mastermind fight. I've actually got a highlight of it later in this video. It's from my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/bigducks, which you should go follow, by the way. There you'll find all the information about killing the boss, and it is an iLvL 83 version of it, so make sure that you watch until the end to see that. As for the safe house here, you're going to notice there's a couple different wings, and each of these wings are going to be the rewards that you get for actually killing each of those people. So you'll notice that they just drop a bunch of random seeming items, but I'll talk about more how to get specific items from these people because some of the rewards are actually quite good and a little bit later on. So we run through here, we pick up all of our rewards, and there's anything from just like random items to like this little bench, like this tiny trial thing that you can see here. You can do some interesting stuff there, but most of the time that's not really worth it. So now that we've talked about actually doing the safe house, we've gone over the basics of how to actually do Syndicate, what it's about, all the things that you should be looking for. Let's talk about choosing which option you really want to go for. Do you want to actually set up a board and be able to get currency out of it that way? Or are you looking to kill Catarina? Or are you looking to do something else? So the first thing we're going to talk about is actually setting up your board. And to set up your board, you need to know which options are actually good. Now, I use this website, which is poesyn.xyz. This is going to be linked down in the description if I remember to do that. What this is this is just going to give you an idea of what each of the different people are capable of dropping. So there's a couple in here that you probably have heard about, mainly It That Fled, upgrading the Breachstone. A lot of people say this is the best thing, but depending on what time you are in the league and what's going on, it isn't always the best thing. But you'll see there is the different sections here. These are the different safe houses that you can put them in, and each one has their specific things. So if you get Kamil in transportation, it's going to give you access to a time-worn item whenever he is in a part of that when you go to the safe house. Same thing with anything else here. Now, the big thing that I want to talk about is that each individual thing on here, even though you see some are green, which means good, some are yellow, which means mediocre, and some are red, which means bad, it isn't as obvious as this leads it to be. Now, it does say this is updated for 3.12, and normally this is updated to be somewhat relevant. However, there's a problem here. So for example, a lot of people that make guides when it comes to Syndicate are going to tell you, hey, you really got to get It That Fled in research, because the only thing that matters is making sure that you can upgrade those Breachstones. You want to get It That Fled in research, you want to get Tora in research, you want to get Kamil here, etc., 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 right? There's a bunch of people that say that. However, I don't particularly agree 100%. These are good. I will say that these are good things to go towards. However, let's take It That Fled for example. So if you notice that the upgrade Breachstone here, right? You're thinking, man, so the Breachstones themselves, those are worth a ton. So we can do pure Chayula Breachstone. We'll look at this like, yeah, early on in the league, this Breachstone is worth, let's see, 1 week into the league of Heist, this Breachstone was worth 132 chaos. It's like, wow, that's a lot. And then later on in the league, it goes all the way up to the point where it's like 280 chaos pure Chayula Breachstone. Unfortunately, this is a little bit misleading, and I want to show you why. A week into the league, you'll be thinking, oh, I'm able to make 132 chaos per one of these. Not exactly. So what you have to take into account is the fact that you have to buy the base Chayula Breachstone and then upgrade it. If we look at the base Chayula Breachstone and we go to a week in, it's only worth 90 C. At 1 week in, for upgrading a pure Chayula Breachstone, you're only making about 40 C. And then as the week goes on, you'll notice that the price goes down pretty significantly, down to the point where when you're buying them, they're worth 30, and when you're selling them, worth about 60. I don't know why that discrepancy is so huge, but regardless, you're only really making about 40 chaos most per flip each time, and that's only at 1 week in. Most people aren't even going to be like in maps or doing any of this by 1 weekend. So you're really looking at like 2 to 3 weeks in as your window. And this is when everybody starts doing it. You can see the huge dip here, right? I don't actually think that it's too worthwhile to be doing the Chayula Breachstone flips all the time very early on. And this is what I'm getting towards. You need to be able to go and look at things like PoE Ninja and look at these kinds of items and look at the different trends that happen and be able to decide for yourself what's actually worth setting up. It honestly might not be worth it to try to get the upgrade Breachstone thing very early on. It might be better to just focus on something else, such as actually killing Catarina. And what I'll show you here is that early on, if you look at things like the Cinder Swallow urn, very early on in the league, this is actually worth a decent amount, right? This is worth like 70-ish chaos. I mean, 1 week into the league, it's worth 100 chaos, right? This is just one of the items that drop off of it. That's the average price. If you got a good one, like a crit one, it would be worth significantly more. There is also other things like the Devouring Diadem. This is going to be worth a ton of money early on. If we look at 1 week in, 300 chaos. So honestly, I kind of feel like very early on in the league, you're probably better off killing Catarina. You can choose whatever you'd like to do, but Catarina is going to drop things like the Devouring Diadem, Cinder Swallow Urn. She's going to drop things that'll unveil the like +2 to support gems. That's one of her unveils. It's really important for things like the Toxic Rain build very early on. Those can sell for a ton of money. You can either get the craft yourself and craft the bows and make a crap load of money off of it, or you can sell those to people who are looking to get those unveils. So you really have to decide for yourself, what part of the league are you in, what items are actually worth money, and then you can choose whether or not to set up your board towards getting those items, or just trying to push as many masterminds as you can to get those types of drops off of Catarina. So now that we've talked about why you should choose each of the options, why you should either set up your board, or why you should kill Catarina, or anything else, now we need to actually talk about the things that we want to do. And first we're going to talk about setting up your board. Now this is probably the big question that everyone has. They want to know how to set up the board. They want to know all the specifics on how to do this. And what I'm going to tell you is pretty simple. There's not a lot to this. You just need to keep some major things in mind. First, your only goal is to try to get as many encounters as you possibly can. So the idea here is you've probably noticed these little lines, right? These little lines, these green lines are trusted lines, the red lines are going to be meaning that they're rivals. So the idea here is that the more people that are trusted, the more people that are rivals, the more often they're going to spawn in these encounters. So as you build up more of these rivalries and as you build up more of these trusteds, you'll start to get 3 or 4 people per encounter instead of it just being like 1 or 2. So you should never, ever, ever choose that option that says remove all rivalries, because it's just going to destroy your progress. You should mainly just be focusing on getting as many rivalries as you can, as many trusteds as you can, and that's the main thing that you should be looking for. Now, as for moving people into different places, you do have a few options. Now, each individual one of these guys, so if you want to move Leo, for example, you'll notice that when you talk to them, you get those options that say things like execute Leo, or Leo will move to transportation, or Leo will move to intervention, or just things like that. Unfortunately, it is ultimately just random what you get. However, you can use a couple little tricks to be more in your advantage. So say we've got It That Fled, right? We really want It That Fled in research, but for the life of you, you can't get It That Fled in research. So what you really want to do is you want to be focusing on getting rivalries, and you want to be focusing on getting trusteds with It That Fled and anyone else. Besides that, you can choose options like removing It That Fled, which will remove her completely from it, and then when she rejoins, you can choose to move her to a different place. And also remember that if you do get her into research and you want her to stay there, you do have that little option down in the bottom right corner I was telling you about where you just do nothing. Now beyond that, you do want to make sure that you rank these people up, because the higher rank they are, the better their options are going to be. So for example, once again with It That Fled, if you get her to rank 3, then you'll get the pure Breachstone upgrade as compared to like enriched or charged or whatever the names of them are. It's just going to be a better reward. And like for Verici, you'll get like 3 white sockets instead of 1 white socket, etc., etc. With that in mind, that's all that you really need to know. I know a lot of people think that it's super complicated and they're like, yeah, I need to have this person here, and it has to be all intricate and perfect. It really doesn't. You just need to choose 1 or 2 people, get them in the places that you want, and just don't choose anything to make them move. I've told you about how to move them there. Unfortunately, it is a lot of RNG, but once you get them there, you can just use that do nothing thing to make sure that they stay there. Now, this brings us to the next step. And what the next step is actually getting the safe houses open so you can get the loot once you get them in those places. So the only thing that matters for getting these safe houses is how high ranked each of these people are. So the idea is that if you've got Exile here and she's ranked 2, right? I told you before how you get that interrogate option every time. The higher ranked that these people are, the more intelligence that you get when you interrogate them. Now, people like It That Fled that you really want to focus on getting the thing from, you obviously don't want to interrogate her because it's going to de-rank her, but that's where all of these other people come in. You saw on the little map thing that I showed you, most of these people are garbage, so you should be using them to ranking them up and then interrogating them down and ranking them up and interrogating them down so you can get these safe houses open and get your rewards. That is like 95% of what you need to know to be able to do this. You can go out there, you can look up some perfect setups for all this kind of stuff. If you want to do that, go for it. But the majority of people with just the information that I gave you in this video should be able to set up your board however you like it. Use poesyn.xyz, that website I showed you a little bit earlier, to choose which one that you'd like. You can keep it up in the background or on another monitor or maybe even on your phone or something like that to just know where you should put each person, and then once you get them there, just leave them there. Never move them away. Just focus on ranking up the bad people and interrogating them over and over and over again. That's all you got to do. Now be warned. If you ever fight the Mastermind, it shuffles your board and destroys everything that you've set up. So keep in mind, you can do one or the other. So if you do want to fight the Mastermind, don't set up your board to be perfect because you're going to lose all of it. So now that we've talked about how to set up your board, let's talk about actually unveiling these items. So I showed you a little bit about unveiling items earlier, but the main thing that you're really going to be looking for when you're unveiling things is you're just looking for specific ones, because the one that everybody wants is either +2 to support gems, you're looking for the minus mana cost from Elrond, among other things. You can actually target these to an extent. It's not perfect, but you can go through and get just the ones that you're looking for. Now, I showed you before, just unveiling these, you can get random modifiers from it, you just level them up, and this is how you unlock the crafts for your things. However, as I said before, there are specific veils. I don't think I have any. Oh, there we go. You see how it says of Chimeria's Veiled? This is actually a modifier that you can search for on the trade website. So I've shown this in previous videos. However, if you're looking for a very specific modifier, you can go onto the wiki page, search up which people give the certain modifiers. Like I said, Elrond is the negative mana cost. Or you can actually go into here and search Catarina, and you'll notice that it says Catarina's Veiled, right? This works for any of them. You search up Catarina's Veiled, and you'll notice that you get a bunch of items with specifically Catarina's Veiled. This is the way that you can buy these out. You'll notice how expensive these are actually. So 14C, 18C, 18C, 18C. That's what I was telling you before. If you kill Catarina for these items, you can actually get a decent amount of money off of it. This is how you get certain specific modifiers. Like, you can't get the minus mana cost on anything but an Elrond ring. See how the Elrond rings are worth a little bit more here? So keep in mind that you can make a decent amount of money selling these unveils for people who want to actually get all of these things unveiled, or you yourself can go and buy these so that you can actually craft them yourself. So this is a good way to get specific unveils that maybe you're having a tough time getting, but the major point of it is just you really have to go in and just unveil a lot of stuff to be able to unlock these things. Now, as for the ranks when it comes to these, you'll notice that like here I unveiled to rank 2. If you actually land on an item that has like rank 3 or rank 2, whatever the highest is, just unveiling for you, you just get it automatically. However, most of the time it's going to be the lower ranked one. So if it's a rank 3 that you need, I think it takes like 8 unveils of level 1 to get it. It's based on item level. You can go to a website like Craft of Exile and search what the item level requirements are, but that's really all that you need to know about the unveils. It's a little hard to get all of them. I've been playing most of the league and you can kind of see how many I'm missing. It's most of them. Some other modifiers like these undiscovered ones are only available through very specific places. It'll actually tell you where they are. Like you can see Belfry, Carcass, Epilogue. You just have to go and find them and get them. But most of the crafts are actually things that you need to unveil through dropping these items. There's a ton of them. I wouldn't expect you to be able to get all of them, but at least you should have some more information about what they are and how to get them. Now, the last thing that we have to talk about is actually Catarina herself and farming Catarina. Now, if you look at the board, you're going to be setting up things a little bit differently specifically for farming Catarina. None of the options of what the people are really matters. You can try to min-max it a little bit if you want, but the only thing that matters when you're trying to go for Catarina is getting people leveled up and interrogating them. So the idea is you're just wanting to get as many people as high level as you possibly can and just interrogate them over and over and over and over again and just push it as hard as you can. That is going to get you all that Mastermind intelligence, which is going to allow you to fight Catarina at the end. So remember that Catarina can drop some pretty good items, things like this Cinder Swallow urn here, but you can get some pretty crazy stuff off of her that's worth a lot of money early on in the league. Like Devouring Diadem, I said earlier, is like 300 chaos very early in the league. But you should go and check PoE Ninja, check to see what the costs of these items that drop off of her are before you focus on either farming Catarina or doing the board or anything else. So now we're going to get into the highlights of the Catarina fight. This will teach you how to actually do the fight. You'll see an iLlevel 83 Catarina, so let's get into it. All right, so this is the Mastermind. If you haven't seen the Catarina fight before, this is the final fight, the Syndicate leader. So this fight's actually kind of interesting, but if you don't know what it is, it can be like super confusing. The Catarina fight is a little weird. The main thing about the Catarina fight is there's these 4 zones on the side that you need to run into. Even I get confused by it still, and I kind of have to be like, all right, what am I doing? Because it is a little strange. The idea is that you just fight Catarina up until she spawns one of her things. Yeah, okay, so here's one of the little dudes that we have to fight. All right, so she teleports again, we have to kill her again. So she has a bunch of like frontal cone stuff, and you're gonna see you get this big like beam coming out of you. And you just have to walk over to the little pillar there and stand next to it until it destroys it, essentially. So that's most of like, quote unquote, phase 1. We do this for each one of the little Perondus, or not Perondus people, each one of the little dudes. Okay, also these things, see those little spirits? If those things touch you, it's pretty much a like guaranteed you die. They hurt real bad. Yeah, I think you're supposed to stand on them and try to pop as many of them as you can before they spawn. Because once they turn into these things, these little green ground effect guys, those hurt a lot. Yeah, look at that. I got hit by one and it took half my health. They will like one-shot you. Also, you'll see that there is this like beam that's coming out of the middle. That's basically just like a big slam attack that you need to be avoiding. Yeah, this is iLevel 83 Catarina as well, so keep in mind that this is relatively high amount of damage and high amount of life. Alright, I think that's it. There's just so many mechanics going on during that entire fight. It's just like, it's very hard to know exactly what's happening. But yeah, that was iLevel 83 Catarina. Yeah, basically, avoid the little skull things on the ground if you can. Don't get hit by any of her like slash abilities and run over to the corners. It's pretty much most of it. What do we get? We got the flask. We ready to be disappointed, boys? 2-3-1, that's actually okay. And then the big unveil. Will we get the crit one? The world may never know. Ooh. Ooh. We got the crit one, gamers. All right, guys, I hope that video was helpful. It should be everything you need to know about Syndicate. As I said, it's not gonna go into the very like close specifics about how to set up a perfect board or anything like that, but you should be able to get 95% of the way there with the information that's in this video, and you can make your own choices. And this video should work pretty much permanently going forward, because I've taught you how to actually figure out what types of items are worth money from Syndicate and what you should be doing. If you still have questions or something isn't fully explained for you or you need a little bit more help, remember you can always join my Discord. It's linked down in the description below. It's the best way to get help with anything Path of Exile related. I have a super helpful community. Tons of people are willing to answer questions in there, and you can also just come hang out with me and the boys. So remember, guys, like this video if you enjoy my content, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in raid class, and I'll see you guys in the next video.